it's super important to STFU. Shut the F up. If you are under investigation, STFU. This episode is about exercising your right to remain silent. So regardless of how you become or how you encounter the police, you have these rights where you can exercise and just be silent. In our culture, we're taught that telling the truth is the best thing to do. Oversharing is the best thing to do. Maybe your religion says it's confession, tell the truth, but that's not the situation that you're in. If you're under investigation, you actually have constitutional rights, both in Tennessee and United States, to STFU. So this episode, we're going to talk about your right to remain silent when you're under investigation, especially for a DUI in Tennessee, and the fact that the news has reported that in 2024, 419 sober people were arrested. And so if you watch this episode, I'm going to talk about the right to STFU and the fact that 419 sober people were arrested, and maybe some reasons why. So if you watch to the end, that's what you're gonna get from this episode. I may go into some frequently asked questions and some common questions, but the main thing is just to help you as my public service work to just remember, shut up if you're talking to the police. The police, law enforcement do a hard job. They're keeping us safe. They're protecting us. At the same time, you have rights if you're under investigation or if you think you might be, okay? So I'm attorney Brian Lee Nash, DUI Nash. I focus on DUIs in Nashville and Middle Tennessee and all across Tennessee. And so if you're charged with a DUI, you need to know certain things and how to proceed and how to win your case. I'm not selling anything. I'm doing this to give everything I have to you so you can make an informed decision if you're charged with a DUI in Tennessee. So again, if you just joined STFU, if you're talking to law enforcement, just shut the F up, okay? Now, according to a recent news article, 419 sober people were arrested in 2024 in Tennessee. How does this happen? I would venture to say, I've had a number of clients that have been arrested, that it happens for a number of reasons. One, the law of attraction. If cops are trained to look for crimes, they are trying to keep our streets safe. And so sometimes they don't give the driver the benefit of the doubt, they arrest them. I would venture to say most of the reason people get arrested for DUI is because they didn't shut up. They made admissions to drinking. They agreed to field sobriety tests. They talked way too much. Now, it's not their fault if they're arrested and they shouldn't have been, but if they say they drank, if they agree to do field sobriety tests, that's probably why they were arrested, okay? I doubt they didn't say anything. They just gave their name, date of birth, showed their driver's license, and then the officer smelled alcohol and then they arrested them. It probably happened because they were talking too much. And so whenever you're stopped, be respectful, put your hands in a place where the officer can see them because they're doing their job, they're doing a hard job. And one of the biggest concerns that law enforcement has is their safety, which is understandable. They're doing a very dangerous job. So the best way to avoid a DUI is to not drink and drive. The second best way to avoid a DUI is to, get an Uber. And then if you are stopped for a DUI, if you're sober or not, do not agree to do standard field sobriety tests. They're designed for you to fail. Unless somebody is really trained on winning these or performing well on them, you're not going to perform well, especially if you have, like some of my clients, past medical conditions, if you or have any kind of medical condition, or you're just not that physically fit, you're not going to pass these tests. You don't have an obligation. You won't lose your license in Tennessee just for not complying and denying doing the field sobriety test. And so it's really important. Number one, STFU, and number two, don't do the field sobriety test. Now, just because you don't talk and you don't do the field sobriety test doesn't mean you're not going to get arrested. But what it does, it sets you up for the future when we go to court. or you go to court with your attorney to win your case, because they won't have as much evidence. One, you didn't make admissions to drinking or doing drugs. And two, they don't have the field sobriety test and the body cam or the dash cam footage to show you stumbling or show you failing the test and show you saying things and looking like you're intoxicated beyond the reasonable amount. It's quite often, I've helped clients for 15 years fight their DUIs. We've had hundreds and hundreds of clients do the DUIs. And one of the most common reasons people get arrested for DUI is that they're tired. They've worked long hours and they're tired. And those symptoms of being tired look very similar to a DUI. Bloodshot, watery eyes, slow speech, maybe they're slurring, they look tired. So a lot of those look very similar. I've even had clients that are charged with DUI when they're having medical conditions. One client in particular was having a panic attack, and instead of him getting the care he needed, of course, a DUI investigation incurred. And so just remember, don't make any statements, be respectful, put your hands where they can see them, and shut the F up, accept your name, your date of birth, your ID, your registration, your insurance, make sure you comply with that. And then if you are arrested, then I made a video yesterday. You can watch that video on what to do 24 hours, the first 24 hours after DUI arrest. So that was yesterday. You want to politely decline field sobriety test and don't give any statements. And if you are arrested, bond out, do the things that I said in that video, and then hire an attorney and follow what your attorney says. Okay. So let's just say you're arrested for DUI, and then eventually you're going to end up at court. And so on all of the DUI cases, we're looking to get it either dismissed or reduced. Now, a reduction, the main four areas, or the main three things that it can be reduced to are reckless endangerment, aggravated reckless driving, and reckless driving. Now, DUI, reckless endangerment, and aggravated reckless endangerment or reckless driving, those all three of those are misdemeanors, misdemeanors, and so the maximum jail that you could be sentenced to is 11 months and 29 days. It's very rare that anyone is sentenced to that length of time on a first DUI, and probably the only time that might happen is if they have an extensive history and or somebody was hurt. But the major difference between reckless endangerment and aggravated reckless driving is there's no mandatory jail time. So most recently I was in court. My client was charged with DUI first. I was able to get it reduced to reckless endangerment. There was a lot of factors in it, which I can't disclose, but it was reckless endangerment reduced. A DUI first reduced to reckless endangerment. And so there's no mandatory jail time. And the other big difference between DUI and these two are there's no mandatory interlock ignition device required. So your license is not affected as much as that. And then the costs are a lot less. Reckless driving, on the other end, is the lesser of the charges. It's a B misdemeanor, and the maximum jail is 6 months. So a reckless driving is of course better than aggravated reckless driving, and it's of course better than reckless endangerment, which is of course better than a DUI. There's one caveat: is if you're an immigrant and you're not a U.S. citizen, reckless endangerment is a specific intent crime. So that could really affect immigration, your approval in immigration, depending on what you're applying for, whether you're applying for a green card or citizenship or asylum or VAWA or DACA or anything like that. If you're an immigrant, you want to be really careful and think really hard whether you're going to plead to a DUI or reckless endangerment. And so with my clients, I usually advise them not to take a reckless endangerment. It's ultimately their choice. I work for them. And so it's their choice whether they want to take that or not, and then maybe have difficulty in the future with immigration getting approved because you have a specific intent crime. Now, with immigration, there's misdemeanor exceptions, and so it may fall under that, may not. But you want to definitely, if you're an immigrant and you're charged with a DUI, hire an attorney that understands the process, not only with your DUI case, but how that criminal charge, whatever it is, affects you with immigration. Okay. So I did hear some chatter in court today that in 2024, there were 419 DUIs that were sober. I heard that that number is significantly higher in 2025. So if that is true, I don't know if it is, but if it's true, that is not a good trend. There needs to be something done about this, because it's really unfortunate if you haven't been drinking or doing drugs or a combination and you end up in court, you have to incur all the costs, your attorney fees, your time off from work, if you have children, childcare, if you're out of state traveling to Tennessee to go to court, and the officer just didn't do the correct thing and let you go. And so, yeah, so it's unfortunate. Hopefully that's not true. I don't have any data on that. I did see news articles today where there's 419 sober people arrested in 2024, which is way too many. One is too many, but 419 is way too many. Now, I remember in law school I learned this phrase that our system is designed. It's better to let 9 guilty people go than to have one person imprisoned, and I agree with that. People should be given the benefit of the doubt. Now, there's this balance that officers are making in the district attorney's office in Tennessee of protecting the public and also not infringing on people's rights. I definitely, out of the 419, I'm sure there are some that could have been let go and nothing would have happened. So yes, so remember, just to recap, STFU, if you encounter the police and you're at all might think that you're under investigation for DUI, whether you're pulled over, whether you're sleeping in your car, whether you're stopped at the gas station, or whether you're outside of your car, you don't want to give any information that can incriminate you. And you have a constitutional right, both in Tennessee and the United States, to not talk and not incriminate yourself. So exercise that right. I was a vendor at the Muddy Roots Festival recently. Going to be a vendor there next year. Also recommend checking it out if you're into music and awesome people. Shout out to Muddy Roots. When I was there, I made the shirts that had STFU. You have the right to STFU. It's a harsher phrase, but I really want people to embrace their rights and exercise their rights, especially when it comes to something as simple as just not talking. It's so simple to just not talk. So I hope this video has been helpful and will ingrain in you, do not talk if you think you might be under investigation. So if you're driving and the police approach you, you probably are. So I would not talk. And I also would not do standard field sobriety tests. So hopefully this is helpful. Leave a comment if you have any further questions, or message us. You can go to 615nashlaw.com. Just fill out a form. There's no charge. We're here to help. If you have any questions around DUIs, that's what we focus on. My offices are in Nashville, Tennessee, 1 block away from the courthouse with the closest criminal defense firm, and we focus on DUIs. We can definitely help you out. If you have any questions, there's no charge for initial consultation. Again, it's just an extension of me helping you these videos, and also, we take it in real life. So that wraps up that segment of the show. Now I want to go to some other topics that I think are really important. We're going to zoom out and let's talk about, there's 9 stages of a DUI case. 9 stages. The first stage is the event before you're arrested for DUI or you come in contact with law enforcement. I've found after doing this for 15 years that there's 2 reasons people end up getting a DUI. Number 1 is anxiety, and the second one is excitement. So oftentimes people lose their job, they're in a fight with a loved one, they break up with a loved one has passed away, or anything that would fall under anxiety, and then they make the choice to go out and drink and deal with that. And so it's very common when people are suffering that they try to feel better by drinking alcohol or doing drugs. That's stage 1 of 9 that leads up to a DUI arrest. Number 2, after you the second way, excitement. The opposite of anxiety, right, is excitement, and people are excited. They get a job raise, they're celebrating a wedding, they're celebrating a birthday, they just have friends that come visit them in Nashville, so they want to go to Broadway. And there's a number of reasons, right? People are excited and want to celebrate. So the second way people come into the event, the second event before coming into contact with law enforcement is excitement. And so all of my DUI cases that I've, clients that I've helped have fallen under one of these two categories. Now, number two, after you were anxious or excited and you went and drank, whether it's at home or at a bar or at a friend's, then somehow you come into contact with law enforcement. Often this is from a stop. You were swerving, you were speeding, or maybe there was an accident. And so or you're stopped at a gas station or some other factor. But oftentimes the car was moving, or you ran a stop sign or some other traffic violation. And now the officer has stopped you. And when they come to the car, almost on every affidavit that I've seen, they say some form of, I smelled the odor of alcohol. They had bloodshot, watery eyes. They had slurred speech or glassy eyes. And that's the most common thing in affidavit is that's the thing. They stop them for some reason, or they come in contact with them. They start smelling alcohol. They see other signs that may indicate that they are intoxicated. And so then that begins the DUI investigation. And that's when you need to go back to the first part of this video. And if you're just joining, you need a STFU, you need to shut the F up. If you're under investigation or you're stopped by law enforcement, only give them the bare minimum. And the bare minimum is your name, your date of birth if they ask it, your identification, your registration, your insurance, and then don't talk. If I'm pulled over, I have mad respect for law enforcement. I make sure they're safe. I put my hands on the steering wheel or make sure they're visible, and identify myself, and then I probably will ask them questions. So whoever asks questions controls the conversation. So if they ask me, where are you coming from? I'm not gonna answer their questions. I'm gonna ask, officer, why'd you pull me over? And then they'll probably tell me, and then they're gonna ask where you're coming from. And I was like, is it okay if I reach over to my glove box and get you my registration? See, I'm not answering their questions, and I highly recommend you don't answer their questions. Be 100% respectful because they're doing a hard job and they're just doing their job, but there's no reason to give them information. So you have anxiety or excitement before contact with law enforcement, you come in contact with them, STFU, don't give them any information other than what's required. And then step 3 of the 9 stages of your DUI case, you get arrested. Again, continue to STFU. It's already made decisions be made. If you're going to be arrested, you're not going to talk the officer out of arresting you if they're already, frisking you and they're already handcuffing you to put you in the car. Now, once you're arrested, you have to remember that they are recording you in the car. And so don't make any statements. Don't engage in small talk with the officer on the way to the jail or to the hospital to get your blood. And I also mentioned before, don't agree to standard field sobriety test. And then there's a big one. When you're arrested, they're going to read your implied consent at some time. Implied consent in Tennessee is, do you consent to blood draw, breath or blood draw? And this is, could be a tricky situation, because if you don't agree and you want to end up fighting your case, then at some point you probably will lose your license for a year for not complying. So that's a decision you have to make. It's up to you to make that decision. I'm not going to say what most people do, but I would recommend, I personally wouldn't submit to it. I would make them go get a warrant. So that's my personal position on it. I'm also okay with losing my license while I'm fighting a DUI if I happen to drink and drive, which I don't even drink. So if you are asked that question, do you want to sign the implied consent? I personally would say no. I would make them get a warrant, because it really helps your case in court. If they don't take that extra step, which happens, fairly often, then now you haven't agreed, you haven't given them any verbal statements, you haven't agreed to do standard field sobriety test, and you haven't agreed to give blood. So now the work is on them. Are they going to go down and get a warrant? Are they going to take the steps that they're required to take to further bolster their case? And so that's one of the questions that you'll get once you're arrested. Now, once you go to jail, whether they took blood or not, you're going to be in jail. And so once you're in jail, the fourth stage of a DUI, once you're in jail, you want to get out of jail. Jail sucks. And so you want to if they ROR you, mean release you on your own recognizance, or if you have to post a bond, or your loved one is in jail, or the loved one comes and posts your bond, you want to get out of jail. Even though there's a 48-hour DUI minimum depending on the blood alcohol on a DUI first, I would get out of jail. It's a lot easier and better to fight your case out of jail. Okay, so that's number 4 in 9 stages to your DUI case. Number 5, you want to hire the best attorney that you can. It's an investment. Hiring an attorney is an investment. And if you just switch your frame on that, you need an expert that has walked this walk many times. It's very similar if you need brain surgery or heart surgery. You're not going to go to a general surgeon. You want to find an attorney that focuses or specializes in DUIs, because that's what you have. And then they have a plan and they'll hold your hand every step of the way like we do. And so depends on where you are. Find the best attorney you can and make that investment. The 6th step in the 9 stages of your DUI case is you want to prepare for court. So what we do is we really prepare our clients. We send them a to-do list, and it has a number of items on there for you to do. And these really help you tilt the scales of justice in your favor. Now, does it mean that your case is automatically going to be dismissed or reduced? No, it doesn't mean that. It means that you're doing things that the hero does, that you find yourself in a difficult spot, there's a gap, and you want to cross that gap. How do you cross it? By leveling up, by increasing your skills, by building new habits. And the most important habit I think that there is you have a system. So if you're going to go out, you don't drink. You don't drive. If you're going to drive, then you don't drink. So you just have like these defaults, these principles that you live by. And that one thing if you can't just quit drinking or doing drugs, that one system, that one, if this, then that, can really save you from having trouble in the future. And that's the whole point, is to learn and grow from this and improve your life. So that's number 6, prepare for court. Number 7, 9 stages to your DUI case is you actually go to court. Now, you want to be on time and you want to be early. There's a judge in Nashville that he really is upset when you don't show up on time, when the defendant doesn't show up on time. And he compares it to going to the airport for a trip. If you're going to Cancun or you're going somewhere and you're super excited, and that's probably the difference, right? You're super excited to go on a trip, to see family, go see friends, have fun, whatever, party in Cancun or go to New York, wherever. If your flight leaves at 11 a.m. and you show up at 11 a.m., there's no way you're getting through security, and they're not going to wait for you. So the judge gives that analogy. You have to prepare ahead of time to get through security at the airport, because it could take a while, to find your gate and to board, right, in time. And so just think of it that way. When your attorney says courts, or the judge says 9 a.m., you need to leave them plenty of time and count for traffic. Go to court, get through security, and find your courtroom, and make sure you're in the courtroom at docket call, which oftentimes is 9 o'clock. Other counties, such as Rutherford County, starts at 8:30. Some courts, depending on the county in Middle Tennessee, start at 1. So you just need to be aware of that and make sure you leave in time. The 8th step in 9 steps of a DUI case is post-court. So after court, if you got probation, you're going to meet with probation. You want to go to the clerk's office, get certified copies of all your records. You want to save those, email them to yourself, scan them, or take pictures, save them in Dropbox or Drive, and you just want to have those. So that way, if you ever need them. And also post-court, if any of your charges were dismissed, you can apply to expunge them. Again, it's super important. Get certified copies of it, because once they're expunged, then they're going to be gone. Okay, so get certified copies, figure out how much your costs, if any, are, and if you don't have the money to pay it right then, set up a payment plan so you can make sure you comply with that requirement of the court, or if it's part of probation. And step 9 is your case is concluded. So if it's dismissed at court, you finished up by going to the clerk and getting certified copies and whatnot. But if you have probation, you can have probation for a period of time, On a DUI first, second, or third, your probation will be 11 months and 29 days. If it's a felony, so DUI fourth or higher, it can be over 1 year. And that's the biggest difference between felonies and misdemeanors is misdemeanors are the max sentence is 1 day under a year, 11 months, 29 days. Felonies can be over a year. And so your case is concluded. And again, if any of the charges are dismissed, then you can go apply to have them expunged. DUIs cannot be expunged in Tennessee. They do not allow it. DUIs to be cleaned off your record. They stay on your record permanently. And so you don't want to get a DUI. But if you do, you want to just make sure you comply with court and probation. When the case is over, then you can get your interlock off your vehicle as long as you complied the whole period with that. And then your case is over and you can go back to normal life. And just make sure that you take these lessons learned and don't have it happen again. So yeah, that's the 9 steps to a DUI case. If you want a copy of that document that I have, just reach out, make a comment, or reach out to 615nashlaw.com. I'm happy to send this infographic over to you, and it's the 9 steps. If you are interested in talking further, you have specific questions, or a case you or a loved one have a DUI in Nashville, Tennessee, or anywhere in Tennessee, we can handle it, or we have other attorneys that can handle it. Again, just reach out to us, 615nashlaw.com, or phone number is easy to remember, 615-NASH-LAW. That's 615-627-4529. So let me recap. We talked about 2 things so far. We talked about STFU and the fact that 419 sober people were arrested in 2024 in Tennessee. It shouldn't be 1, much less that many. And I heard rumors in the court today that 2025 is going to have significantly more. It's not a trend. If that's true, it's not a trend that is good. And by no means, something needs to be done about that. And hopefully some government officials and law enforcement can step up and make sure that sober people who have to bear the cost of defending themselves against the DUI aren't arrested. I learned in law school, just to recap, that it's better for 9 guilty people to go free than 1 innocent person go to jail or be convicted. And it's just not right. That's not our system. And so this is not a good trend. 419 sober drivers were arrested for DUI in 2024. So the main thing one of the main ways to avoid, if you're sober, getting a DUI is to not talk, is not make any admissions. Because once you make an admission that you drank or did drugs, they're going to automatically assume that you're intoxicated. Okay, that's what they're trained to do. They're looking for crimes. If you give any indications that there might be, they're gonna run with it. Now, the really good cops can differentiate between whether you're actually intoxicated beyond the legal means or not, legal level or not. And but a lot of times, because they're worried that if they let you go, that you're going to go out and hurt somebody or kill somebody, they just arrest you out of abundance of precaution. So, and I just want to be clear. I respect law enforcement 100%. I have great relationships working with law enforcement in the court every day, and they do a hard job, and they're doing I'd say 99% of the time, the best they can do. However, you have a right to STFU if you're talking to officers, law enforcement, whether it's troopers, whether it's county sheriff, or whether it's city police. Okay. So if you're arrested for a DUI, you want to find and invest in the best attorneys, an attorney that focuses on DUIs, and you want to invest in them because there's a lot at stake. Okay. So let's go to some frequently asked questions. In the time that we have remaining, I'm doing these lives every day. Excuse me, the goal is 100 days of lives. I'm going to give away all the information that I can, that I know, to help you so you can watch the videos. I don't recommend representing yourself because they say that an attorney that represents himself has a fool for a client. And so it's not wise to represent yourself, because if you're talking to the district attorney, then you can say something incriminating and they can use that against you. You could say something that you think is helpful, but in reality, because you don't do this every day, you're probably really smart, then that can go against you, especially eventually if you go to trial. Now, do you have to have an attorney? That's one of the next frequently asked questions. No, you don't. But if you represent yourself, you might have a fool for a client. Okay. And so there's certain protections that an attorney offers. One is as a buffer between you and the district attorney, so you don't say something incriminating. If I was ever arrested for a DUI, I wouldn't represent myself. Okay. Even though I do, that's my focus. That's what we, specialize in. I would never represent myself on a DUI. I would have one of the best, if it's not me, one of the best attorneys that I know, one of my buddies, friends, help me out and go to court. So do you have to have an attorney? You do not. You have a right to represent yourself, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. And no, I'm not saying this so you would hire me. You can hire whoever you want to, or get a public defender. I'm doing this as public service work. My job here is just to give, and I'm not trying to get anything. Okay. So that goes into why am I doing this? Why do I offer free consultations? Why am I giving away all this for free? Well, because I have a heart of a teacher. That's what you need to look for in an attorney, because it's a service. There's no end product. There's paperwork you get, but there's no end product. So you want an attorney that has the heart of a teacher, because it's a complicated, law is complicated. It uses terms you're not familiar with, and you're smart enough to figure it out if you wanted to go to, 3 or 4 years of school, and then you go to law school, and then you practice it. Well, you don't have time to do all that. So you want an attorney that's going to communicate promptly, that's going to respond to you, and it's going to talk to you in a way that you want to be talked to. And so that really can be summed up in the heart of a teacher. And so if the district attorney is offering this or that, the attorney that you invest in, you want them to come to you and explain what that means, and really simplify it and dumb it down, because you're just not versed in this. You don't do it every day, and the attorney does. So I pride myself on being able to take a complex situation with big words, legal jargon, and really simplify it and say, hey, there's this option or this option. This means this. And so that's what I'm also doing on these videos. So specialized, focused, and experience. This is when you're hiring an attorney to fight your DUI case. You want an attorney that focuses on DUIs. Again, do you want a heart surgeon, or you want your general doctor, general practitioner to do your heart surgery? There's no way in your right mind you would agree to that. So why would you want a general attorney that handles all these things that are spread out, doing your DUI case? You want an attorney that it focuses on DUIs and that has a mapped out plan to win your case, like we do. We literally have a step-by-step process that we have you go through. We hold your hand every step of the way, and we have great success with our clients. When you're hiring or investing in a DUI attorney, you want to find an attorney that communicates how you prefer and is a personal fit. So someone, again, it kind of goes back to heart of a teacher. You want a DUI attorney that has a heart of a teacher, that communicates effectively with you, and that really communicates via the channels that you want. So if you prefer text, if you prefer phone, if you prefer email, WhatsApp, or in person, like we do, we offer all of those ways to communicate, whatever you prefer, because we know that you're busy, you have a life, you have a family, you have work, you have all these things that you're dealing with on top of the stress and overwhelm of a DUI. So we really strived, at least with our clients, to communicate in the way they prefer and the method they prefer. And so that's some pointers on hiring an attorney to fight your DUI case. Now, let's talk about another big factor in hiring an attorney is you want an attorney that's going to be, one second. Okay, so one second, let's see. I was told that there's comments. One second, let's see if I can get to them. Okay, I can't see the comments. Hey, can you pull up the comments? One second. Well, one second, folks. Okay, so I just had my my wonderful kids let me know that there's comments. So we'll pause from hiring a DUI attorney and answer some of these questions. So some of them don't apply to DUI, so I'm not going to answer some of them. Okay, so I just had my wonderful kids. 1 second, let me shut that off. So is it worse to get a marijuana DUI charge or alcohol drug charge? That's a great question. And so you can get a DUI in Tennessee for DUI from alcohol or drugs. And so it really, one is not worse than the other. With alcohol specifically, there's a bell curve. So when you drink alcohol, it goes up a predictable way and then it goes down. And so the blood test really snuffs out whether your blood levels over the limit or not. With marijuana, it's a little bit different. It measures multiple things when they do toxicology. And so depending on what your numbers are, 3 nanograms, 5 nanograms, 27 nanograms, right? And then the other number, it really depends on those numbers and a lot of factors and the facts of a case. So one is not worse than the other. It's just clear when you're arrested for DUI and alcohol that if it's 0.08 to 0.149, it's mandatory 48 hours in jail. If it's 0.15 or higher, then they want 7 days in jail. So there's no similar thing with marijuana, whether your levels are 3 nanograms or 27 nanograms. It usually doesn't make it get higher. So get higher, pun intended. So is it worse to get marijuana or DUI charge? Not really. So we have another question. Do you think I can get in trouble for blasting music in my HOA at midnight? Yeah, there's probably, I mean, if you're an HOA, probably HOA has certain rules and guidelines, so that will definitely be an issue in your HOA neighborhood. And then also the city or the county, depending on where you're at, will definitely have noise ordinances that will limit certain decibels at certain amounts of time. So you just want to check with your local HOA or your HOA and your local rules, your ordinances or laws, and see if you're in violation of that. Well, thanks. Just have a little faith. I appreciate that. He says this guy knows his stuff. I'm not lying. Definitely not. I don't believe in lying. I have integrity. No, you definitely will not find this on ChatGPT. Hopefully you will. Hopefully, ChatGPT, if you're listening, will pick this up and put this out there so it can help people, because that's why we're here. We're here to help people. Yeah, so you want to be the hero of your story, not a zero of your stories. Party, hey. Okay, I'm just going through some of the comments here. Oh, can you ever get a DUI off your record? No. In Tennessee, a DUI cannot be expunged. A DUI conviction cannot be expunged. If your DUI is dismissed, then 100%, any case that is dismissed in Tennessee, you can expunge it, and there's usually no fee for that. There's other crimes that you can get expunged in Tennessee. If you were convicted, there's usually a filing fee for that. So DUIs, convictions cannot be expunged in Tennessee. If your DUI was dismissed, then it can be expunged. Now, a lot of times I get cases, my clients' cases, DUIs reduced from DUI to reckless endangerment, aggravated reckless driving, or reckless driving. And what the state does is they make you sign a form, and before you go in front of the judge, where you can't expunge that off your record. So it may be technically eligible, but a lot of times when the district attorney's office is going to reduce that, part of the agreement is that you can't expunge it. Okay, so hope that answers that for you. Is it illegal for me to drive around town with a V8 Chrysler Hemi with only a learning permit? Yeah, nice car, by the way. No, it's not illegal for you to drive around town if you have a valid learner's permit. Now, you gotta, I don't know what kind of learner's permit you have, but if you're required to have a driver 21 and older in your vehicle, and you don't, then that would be an issue, of course. So you shouldn't be driving by yourself if the learner's permit requires you to have someone over 21. So if you are driving on a learner's permit where you're supposed to have a driver over 21 and you don't, that would be a problem if you're caught. So could you sue and get mucho dinero if you're arrested illegally for a DUI? That's a great question. And so technically, I mean, generally, no. If you are arrested and the officer had reasonable belief or had probable cause to arrest you, then most likely the odds of getting compensation from the officer or from the government is pretty low. There might be, I've never done this, but there might be situations where if it was a malicious prosecution, if you saw something improper, or if the body cam footage said, hey, this is my wife's ex-husband or something. I know he's not drunk, but I'm going to arrest him. If there was something egregious like that, you may be able to, and I don't know, you'd have to talk to a civil rights attorney for that. But generally, no, you can't get money from a arrest where you end up winning. I have a lot of people that call my office and want to deal with that, but I focus on helping people fight their DUIs. We actually help great people fight their DUIs. And so, excuse me, if there's some kind of civil rights action or something, we have attorneys that we deal with, that we work with to fight those issues, but we don't handle them in-house. Okay, so this is bad for people that yap once they get a sip of alcohol in the system. Yeah, I mean, some people, get angry when they drink. Some people get talkative. Some people get quiet. Some people get depressed. So it really depends on your what happens when you drink. I kind of view alcohol as just amplifying whatever you have, but there could be different moods and different times. And so if you're one of the ones that talks a lot when you drink, you definitely need to do what I talked about in the beginning of this live, was just STFU. You need to exercise your right to remain silent. Maybe difficult if you're drinking and you're a yapper when you drink, but you definitely don't want to engage in small talk with any law enforcement that pulls you over, because they're not there to be your friend. You're not going to talk them out of anything if they have enough evidence to arrest you or to cite you for something. You're not going to talk them out of it. Just be respectful, put your hands where they can see them, and then exercise your right to STFU. Great question. Can I drink one alcoholic drink and drive, or can I get a DUI for that? Yeah, so the law says that you can't drive impaired. So I've seen a lot of attorneys and different stuff about you can drink one drink per hour and you'll be fine. I do not recommend doing that. My policy is you gotta calculate the risk involved in doing certain things, and that definitely applies when you're drinking. The costs associated with DUI are upwards of $10,000. Attorney's fees, ignition, interlock, court costs, fines, probation, insurance going up. I mean, there's tons of costs associated with DUI. So if you really are looking at it, you're playing the game of drinking roulette. It's like, oh, can I drink, and am I going to get in trouble? I would recommend that you don't drink and drive, and you don't do drugs and drive. So if you've drank, just don't drive. Take an Uber, take a Lyft, have your parent, drive you, call your parent to pick them up, even if you have to go get your car the next day. Just don't take the risk. It's not worth it. And the really successful people in the world, like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett in the investment world, they teach and they practice and they teach, think of the inverse. So what if you have one drink and then you go out and kill somebody? Right, you're looking at 8 to 40 years in prison if they can show that drink made you intoxicated beyond the legal limit. And so it's really like playing drinking roulette, right? You're gambling with your future, and so it's just not worth doing. So the best policy is if you drink or do drugs, don't drive for as long as necessary, ideally that day, and get an Uber. Get a friend to take you, get your parents to come pick you up. I know if my kids call me anytime, I would come get them if they had something to drink. Because they know not to drink and drive. And so definitely recommend don't drink and drive, especially beyond one. Okay, so another question. Are you allowed to record cops freely? I see people get in trouble for that, but I thought it was legal. Good question. One of the reasons I stopped doing just like daily posts about random stuff and I'm focused on DUI questions is because this goes into an area that, I mean, I usually encounter people after they're arrested. So sometimes, you know, my clients end up calling me, friends and family or people that know of me during a stop, but I can't interfere in an investigation. But generally, you can record the public. It's the same as officers. They can anything in public in plain sight, they see it, and that they can use that to prosecute you. Generally, you can record cops. Again, you're kind of playing with fire. I mean, if you have a legitimate concern, then definitely have your camera on in the car, you know, on the station, and record. And I definitely recommend doing that. But if you're not involved in the investigation or you're just publicly, you know, recording something, then I would stay away and don't interfere with the investigation. Even attorneys can interfere with investigations. So I would say you're free to record whatever you want, as long as it allows you to comply safely with the officer's request. And if you're not involved in the investigation, then I would definitely not want to be involved and possibly get, you know, maced or sprayed or arrested for interfering with an public official's duties. So hopefully that answers your question. Not something I deal with every day. So, you know, go with that. To specify also, can they snatch it and pocket it? Oh, the phone? Yeah, I mean, then you have a Fourth Amendment issue. Is it unreasonable search and seizure? You know, so then you're going to have to deal with that. Yeah, that's a good question. Again, I don't deal with that all the time. And so I would recommend, you know, again, keeping a safe distance, record, and, you know, we have a right to police the police. You know, that's a big thing online, you know, police the police. And so there's value in that, right? So there needs to be checks and balances on law enforcement, on government officials, just like they're policing us. I think there's a time and place for that. And I would just recommend staying safe, staying at a safe distance, and police the police. But if they take your phone, then you want to definitely hire an attorney and get it back, because that might be an unreasonable search and seizure. Because if you're up in their face, you know, causing issues and interfering with the investigation, they might just take your phone. They might arrest you. If you're broke, don't get a DUI. I mean, yeah, that's a good advice. I would recommend don't get a DUI no matter what, because it is expensive. But drinking and driving is really dangerous. Don't drink and drive. That's like the easiest way to avoid this, unless you're one of the 419 in 2024 that didn't drink and drive, and they still got arrested for DUI. And like I said in the beginning, STFU and don't do the standard field sobriety test. And so I would venture to say probably a majority of those said something I recommend not saying. They didn't STFU, and they probably agreed to the field sobriety test, because the field sobriety tests are designed for you to fail. And so don't do them. Like, you're not going to lose your license for not doing them. It's different than implied consent. If you don't agree to give your blood or breath, then you could lose your license for a year. I had a hearing. We're fighting a DUI because there's some issues in the case in another county, and my client did not sign the implied consent. And so because the case is going from general sessions court to circuit courts, where we could eventually possibly have a trial if we need to, we had a hearing, a civil hearing on the implied consent violation. My client lost his license for a year. And so we got a restricted license order, and he was able to go get his restricted license and drive. So it's not like you can't drive, but it causes some issues and problems when you don't do the implied consent. But it's different than standard field sobriety test. You don't lose your license automatically for not doing them, so don't do them. So STFU, only say what's necessary, make sure the officer knows that they're safe, and then don't agree to do the standard field sobriety test. And as far as implied consent, I personally would not agree to it. I don't drink and drive, and so I would never agree to implied consent, because I know I'm sober. And if they wanted to prosecute me, the officer wanted to continue prosecuting, they can go get a warrant and they can force me to give my blood, because I'm not going to volunteer. But you have to weigh the risk of losing your license and stuff. So you're welcome, ZUNR 69. So you're welcome. So okay, that's all the comments that I see. Appreciate everybody for joining and asking questions. That's it for today. Let me recap. When you're around police or you're under investigation or think you might be, STFU, definitely don't talk to the police like they're your friends. They're not. They're there to do a job and protect the public. And it is dangerous to drink and drive, so don't drink and drive. The state's attorney's office, the district attorney, and law enforcement have seen the damage that DUIs do to people and families. So think of the inverse, like Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett. I don't know if I finished that story, but think of the inverse. When you're in a situation, you think of what's the worst thing can happen. If you drink 1, 2, 3, whatever amount of drinks or do drugs and drive, one of the worst things could happen is that you get in an accident or hit somebody and they die. So somebody lost their life, family lost their loved one. You're looking at 8 to 40 years in prison and have to deal with that the rest of your life. So that's the inverse. So when you go to drink and you think you might drive, think of like that's awful. That would be a really bad inverse scenario. Don't do that. Don't take the risk. So don't drink and drive. Don't do drugs and drive. And if you find yourself arrested, especially if you're sober, invest in a DUI attorney that focuses and maybe specializes in DUIs like we do here at 615 Nash Law. It's easy to get a hold of us. If you have more questions, we offer free consultations. We're not selling anything here. 615nashlaw.com or 615-NASH-LAW is the phone number. That's 615-627-4529. Okay, one second. Elizabeth, in Wisconsin, failure to consent to blood or breath is an automatic DUI. Okay, did not know that. Laws that vary in different states, and so in Wisconsin that's really strict. If you Elizabeth saying if you fail to consent to blood or breath in Wisconsin, it's automatic DUI. Somebody was saying I use your videos for my Minecraft court case. That made my day, so I'm glad that was helpful. If you have any other questions on that would help you in your Minecraft court cases, I'll try to answer mine here. And somebody asked, was law school hard? I mean, I think, I think anything is hard when you don't do it. So when you don't have the skills, it's like a plane taking off, right? In the beginning, whatever you're trying to learn, whether you're trying to learn the language, whether you're learning an instrument, whether you're learning to cook, or you're in school to be a nurse or anything like that, in the beginning, things feel very hard. And until you do it and put multiple reps in, until you build the habit, and then it comes second nature, it can feel real hard. So yeah, law school was hard. I went to law school. I was married at the time. I had 2 step kids and a daughter when I started, and my son. So I had a lot of responsibility, but and I also worked full time. So was it hard? I mean, I think that's a subjective thing. I look back and it was beautiful times with my family at the time, and the study, and it was different than it is now. But it was intense. I mean, it was really intense going to law school, trying to do my best to take care of my family and finances. But I made it through, and I passed the bar exam on the first try, and I opened my practice right away. So I think if you can align as much as possible with what you want to do and what you're designed to do in this life, I think you can get through anything that you want. So good, appreciate the question. Yeah, if I could go back in time, would I choose a different career path? Yeah, 100%, I would. I'm very grateful for this career, but I kid around. I'm an entrepreneur trapped in an attorney's body. I love business. I love marketing. I love online businesses. I love, I learned from Naval Ravikant, there's 4 forms of leverage. 1 is people, 2 is capital, 3 is media, which is what I'm doing now, right? And 4 is code. And so I definitely would do, one of those from the beginning. If I was in my 20s again, I can tell you exactly what I would do. And if you're in your 20s, listen up. I would literally keep my expenses to almost nothing. If you need to move to a country or a place where you could live on less than $1,000 a month, I would not have a car. I would have my studio apartment or room I rented right next to a grocery store, so that way I didn't have to travel. And I would literally spend, 10 to 12 hours, 14 hours a day learning sales, learning storytelling and copywriting, and learning how to use, nowadays, I would learn how to use AI to solve specific problems that businesses have. And I would target wealthy people, people that have money to spend, and I would solve one specific problem for them until I was doing $1 million a year. And if you keep your expenses to $1,000 a month, you have a lot of extra money. Then the next problem that you're going to have is, how do you not pay half of that in taxes? So then you would learn the skill of, hey, how can I take this cash, this money that I'm making, and invest it in things so I don't have to pay it all in taxes? And then you just keep doing that, and you just keep upgrading. So yeah, if I could do it over, I would just live super cheap in my 20s. I would travel. I love traveling, so I would probably travel to different places, build skills, build relationships, and solve problems for wealthy people. What does capital mean? So capital means money that you have. So capital is really money. So if you live off, if your expenses are $12,000 a year, you make $1 million. It's $1 million minus 12. All that money is capital, and so you're going to have to pay taxes on some of it unless you invest in assets like real estate, where you can offset those tax bills that year. That's why people buy vehicles like Range Rovers, exotic cars, or trucks bigger. If it's 6,000 pounds or more, then people are going to buy these vehicles, because that whole amount can be written off their taxes. So hope that helps. A little bit off the subject of DUIs, but I'm DUI Nash. We're going live every day. The goal is to go live at 5. If I'm in court and I won't be able to, then I'll still go live. But we're going live. Come here for a DUI lesson every day. And then thank you for everybody that commented and asked questions, so I can answer those. And I'm super stoked for the person that was able to win their Minecraft court case based on the videos. So love it. So see you guys tomorrow.